I'm Selena Hill, digital editor of Black Enterprise, and this is the new norm. Today, I am honored to speak with Senator Kamala Harris. Senator Harris, it is no secret that you are being seen as the clear frontrunner for Joe Biden's VP pick, and the speculation has only grown now that we've seen a photo of his personal notes with you listed on top. How do you feel about that?
You know what? I am honored to be in the conversation, and there are a lot of incredible people whose names have been mentioned. But most of all, I am really looking forward to doing everything I can in whatever capacity to help Joe Biden be elected the next president of the United States. This is probably one of the most important elections of our lifetimes. I know we say that often. This one, without any question, is the most important election of our lifetime. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about the Build Back Better plan, because it is about what Joe Biden intends to do to actually look at America and see where we have had historic disparities based on race. And his whole plan is about advanced racial equity across the economy. And that's the most recent component of his plan. And let's get into it, because there are really some very interesting and exciting components of the plan, including one of my favorites, which is what it will do for HBCU students.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the plan. So Joe Biden has unveiled the fourth pillar, which, as you stated, is about racial economic justice and equity. He's calling for an investment of $150 billion in minority small businesses. He's asking for 15% of federal procurement to go towards minority businesses as well. There's even a social justice, a criminal justice reform element to it. He's calling to end cash bail. On top of that, he's saying that people who are incarcerated should be guaranteed housing. But you said your favorite part of the bill is the HBCU component. So talk to us about that.
Well, one part, certainly it is one of my favorite of the many. And because what we know is this: first of all, when you look at Black students, 90% of Black students take out student loans, 72% of Latino students take out student loans, and for white students, that's 66%. So 90% of Black students take out student loans. And what he is proposing as part of his Build Back Better plan is that for families who have an income of $125,000 or less, they will be able to attend HBCUs, including private HBCUs and public universities and colleges, tuition free. So if their family has an income below $125,000 a year, they will be able to attend college, including an HBCU, tuition free. And that is so significant because, of course, what we know is that often our students, when they go to college, they may be first in their family to go to college. When you connect that with the fact that Black families own 1/10 of the wealth of white families, you know that it is not often the case that that Black student can then have their family, for example, take a loan out against their home because the rates of home ownership are so much lower than other families. And so allowing those students to pursue their capacity, their God-given capacity, and not have to worry about how they're going to pay for an education that will benefit all of society. It's such an important component of this plan. But there are many other components. For example, there's going to be a $15,000 refundable tax credit for first-time home buyers. And again, when we look at the rates of home ownership within the Black community, we know that we are still looking at great disparities. And the ability to buy a home, again, that is for most families, their only and their main and the most significant asset that they own. It is a source of intergenerational wealth. You know, we talk about starting a business and we want to encourage entrepreneurship. Well, when that daughter goes to her mother and says, "Mommy, I want to start a business," the mother can say, "Well, you don't have to take out a loan to do that. I'll take out some of the equity in our home." Or let's say the son goes to the father and says, "I want to attend Howard University, my alma mater." The father can say, "Son, you don't have to take out alone, I can take some equity out of the house. So the home ownership component of the Build Back Better plan is very significant. There's also a homeowner and renter Bill of Rights, which is so important, and in particular during this pandemic, where we're looking at the fact that nearly 1/2 of Black and Latino families are expressing concern about being able to pay their rent in the month of June and going forward. So these are some of the components, including that he will cancel $10,000 of student loan debt for all students. And when we look at that combined with free tuition for families who have under $125,000, we're looking at a real significant sea change in who can pursue a higher education and how they'll be able to accomplish that.
Thank you, Senator, for that overview. This is a multifaceted bill, that a proposal actually that would do a lot to advance Black and brown communities. But one thing that's not in the bill was reparations. Do you know why that was not included?
Well, I know that Joe Biden supports the Sheila Jackson Lee bill that is about convening a whole group of folks to go through America's history of racism and systemic racism, including obviously everything starting from slavery through Jim Crow and lynchings and everything else, and to do a study to make a determination of what that should look like. And I know that Joe Biden does support that study, and I think that's a good thing.
I mean, personally, how do you feel about another study about reparations? And let's say the study just affirms what we already know, that systemic inequality have held back Black and brown people in this country since its inception. What's the next step? And what would you expect from a president to do to take that next step?
Well, what we have to do is understand that the racism and the systemic racism that we have experienced in this country has had a profound impact across all kinds of disciplines and issue areas. So we've talked a lot, for example, in this conversation about education, and you can see the disparities in terms of education. You can look at in the healthcare system and public health system. We've been talking about it more. Society is, I think, more aware of it because of the pandemic. But Black families, 20% more likely to have asthma, 40% more likely to have high blood pressure. Black women, 3 times more likely to have lupus than white women. Black women, 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth than white women. So there is that, right? And we know that a lot of that has to do with what has been systems within our country that have been infused or informed by racism. You can look at what we need to do in terms of the disparities and the racial disparities in terms of, again, wealth. 1/10 the wealth of white families. And when you connect that with America's history of racism on a variety of issues, including redlining, we know that that is real. And so you can go down the line, and there are all of these areas that have to be addressed. And so when we talk about reparations, you are spot on. It is, from my perspective, it is not about acknowledging for the first time that systemic racism is real in America, but it has to be about talking about how we're going to address it, both in terms of its effects, but also in terms of the reforms that are necessary, and in many cases, the drastic reforms that are necessary to rid the system of these issues. And so I applaud the work that's being done. And, and this is again why this plan that Joe Biden is offering around dealing with racial disparities in the economy is a very important step, because he is acknowledging that racial equities have to be a part of the priority of building back better the economy of America.
Can you lay out what would another 4 years of a Trump presidency look like in comparison to a Biden presidency?
I mean, night and day. Listen, Donald Trump, in the middle of the worst public health crisis we've ever experienced, where we're looking at over 150 souls that have perished, lives that are, people who have died. Over 4 million people have contracted the virus. African Americans and Latinos are 3 times as likely to contract the virus and twice as likely to die from it. And Donald Trump has his attorney general, who, in my opinion, is his personal lawyer, Bill Barr, in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act that Barack Obama, together with Joe Biden, instituted, that brought healthcare to tens of millions of people who didn't have it. Let's start there, okay? Let's look at the fact that Donald Trump has spent full time sowing hate and division in our country, has referred to, you know, African countries as S-hole. I mean, I can go down the list of how he has equated white supremacists with civil rights advocates and activists. When you look at what is happening in terms of the fact that in our relationships with those who should be and have been historically our allies around the world, and he is defiling those friendships. He is pulling us out of basically in a very real way the allies and the relationships that we have had that have allowed us to have our strength in the world when it comes to so many issues that we care about. And I could keep going down the list, but the bottom line is this. You can take a look at every place that is something that you care about and look at the two candidates and where they stand, whether it be healthcare, whether it be prioritizing a public education for our children. He has a Betsy DeVos in there when we should have a real educator heading up our Department of Education, knowing especially that our children of color, our poor children, rely on a public education system to work, and right now it is not working. Look at the issue of the climate crisis, but we have a science denier and a president of the United States. There's so many issues at play, and I do fear that if Donald Trump is elected, re-elected, that the damage that he has done may be irreparable.
Wow. Thank you so much, Senator Harris.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Take care.